Buffalo Bills took Dougie P and the Jaguars down 47-10. Kaz, I'm sure you have some love in your heart for Dougie P. I texted the group chat last night and I said, I literally might shed a tear when I get the no. Dougie P has been fired. And I just wanted to get another Eagles fan's perspective at Dougie P. Is it Dougie P? Is it Trevor Lawrence? We're talking about in this group chat. What are their Jaguars' main problems?
Yeah, I think it's more Trevor than Dougie P for sure. It's more Trevor than Dougie P. Trevor Lawrence looks really bad. Like, I mean, it's undeniably bad. I still want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think because he had the one season where he went over 4,000 yards. Christian Kirk had a good season. Evan Ingram had a good season. I don't think that he's as bad as he's playing right now, but like watching the game, I'm like, dude, you are making the worst decision when shit hits the fan. At the end of the day, the quarterback makes the final decision on what he does with that ball in his hands. And Trevor Lawrence just seems to make the worst decisions almost every time. At that point, you can't really blame the head coach. But the head coach doesn't get off scot-free because the play calling at times is very questionable. But I mean, it's on both sides of the ball. It's like, when it comes to especially the Buffalo Bills, when you're putting up four touchdowns before the first half, I think it was. Josh Allen's great, but I think that the Jaguars defense just completely shit the bed. They weren't prepared, and the Bills just took full advantage of that. I think that's a coaching issue at that point. Also, when it comes to the offense, like I said about Trevor Lawrence with his decision making, I'm like, bro, like just get rid of the ball, man. Get out of the pocket. Why are you not moving? You see the pocket collapsing, like you are in danger. Throw the ball away, and it's just like, nope. I'm gonna do the polar opposite of what Kaz thinks, and I like to think I know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? So I'm like, Trevor, man, I'm watching you, man. You don't seem like you really give a damn. You don't really seem like you're invested, and it's just bad all around. So I think there's some blame to go around everywhere, but seeing Trevor play that bad, I mean, I got to put a ton of blame on him. A lot more blame on him than I do Doug Peterson. They're getting, the running backs the ball. We saw a little bit of a burst from ETN late in the fourth quarter. Tank Bigsby, he's been okay at times, throughout the first 3 weeks. And they're offensive guys. Like sometimes they're getting open, but Trevor's just throwing into double coverage, or he's not taking the checkdowns when they're there. So it's like, I think that I'll give it 70% Trevor Lawrence's fault, 30% Doug Peterson. If I'm being generous, I'll say 65-35. So.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to see it, man, because you see what Dougie P can do. He took Trevor Lawrence to the playoffs. Toddy, you're messing with the mic, man. I'm going to need you to mute yourself. But when we saw what he could do with the Eagles, we saw that he took Trevor Lawrence to the playoffs. But unfortunately, I think it's Trevor Lawrence. If you're going to say who takes more of the blame, it has to be Trevor Lawrence, because I don't know if you guys understand this, but he ain't won since week 12 last week.
9 straight losses.
We talk about the Eagle Street. He's one game away from being up there with us. He shambles. He crumbles in the worst times. And yes, I know people want to sit here and say, look at his receiving core. Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud. I think Christian Kirk is really good. So, and then he has Evan Ingram, so who was hurt. So I get that. But like Kaz mentioned, when you have a backfield of Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, you really can't complain. There's a lot of weapons in place. Like Kaz mentioned, the defense didn't come to play. No matter how good the offense was going to play, giving up 4 first-half touchdowns to the Buffalo Bills, you're cooked. We saw who did they play on Monday night when they gushed him with James Cook 3 times? Oh, was it? Who did they play?
Thursday night against
that was the Dolphins.
The Dolphins, yes.
The Dolphins.
James Cook came out just like this. Boom, 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 boom. You get behind this team. Josh Allen this year has shown that they're not going to give up that lead. And when Josh Allen comes off the field, Ed Davis is scoring touchdowns. Khalil Shakir is a number 1 wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. Keon Coleman got into the end zone. This team is they have everything going on. And I didn't even mention Dalton Kincaid, and all fantasy knowers know that tight ends are just kind of been a tanker this year. So the Buffalo Bills have a lot going for them, and Josh Allen is going to be able to take them to this next step. So, Toddy, I want to get your thoughts on this. After the game, Josh Allen said, people aren't coming out there worrying about their stats, worrying about their targets. And for them to come out 3-0, what are your thoughts on the Buffalo Bills' hot start?
I think, Josh Allen's like the prohibited favorite currently right now to win MVP, basically at all sports books. I think this game in particular kind of comes down to I think the Jags are bad. It's kind of a mixture of Dougie P and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence hasn't won a game since week 12 last year. As Kevin already mentioned earlier, that's a pretty bad stat. But I mean, he has solid receiving core. There's ETN back there, his old college running mate. He has Christian Kirk, who's a good shifty receiver. He has Brian Thomas Jr., who I think is a stud receiver from LSU. And it's it's not really clicking for them. And, Doug Peterson, I think he said something today about they got to make some adjustments throughout the team. And I think they were kind of trying to ask him about the quarterback, what's going on with Trevor. And they're like, we got to evaluate every position. And so kind of with that, you got to look yourself in the mirror. How good is this team going into it? I feel like the Jags kind of peaked that year when they played, when they made the playoffs and Trevor Lawrence threw all those picks, but then they ended up coming back and winning the playoff game against the Chargers. And then going to Jacksonville and Mahomes gets hurt in that game. That was their window right there to win. When Mahomes got hurt in the second round of the playoffs, the divisional round, at Arrowhead, and they weren't able to get the job done, I feel like that was their window to kind of make a little bit of a run. But as we all know, blaming on the Henny, came in and got the job done. So for now, it's kind of okay, Doug Peterson, you're in another year with Trevor Lawrence, just got paid, and he's playing bad. So it's they ain't going to get rid of Trevor Lawrence. We just paid him all this money. So the scapegoat is, unfortunately, your guys' old Super Bowl winning coach in Dougie P. So this might be his final run as, being a head coach. I don't know if he's good with being an offensive coordinator, but I think his coaching days are going to kind of be numbered after this season because if Trevor Lawrence just doesn't miraculously start playing well out of the blue, it's going to be – when was the last time you guys can remember the Jags were good? They were a team that was getting to the playoffs every year. I'm kind of going back to Mark Brunell, David.
I'm going back to I'm talking what's his name?
Brian
Jalen Ramsey. That they had a top defense. They almost went to the Super Bowl that year. If I'm not mistaken.
The Bortles,
Blake Bortles, Jalen Ramsey.
They made it to the AFC Championship game. So
It was lit.
I don't like the Jags, and that was a one-hit wonder year. And then the year after that, they sucked. So it's
definitely a one-hit wonder.
Consistently, are the Jags maybe it's an organizational thing? It's they can catch fire one year, and the next year it's we missed the playoffs. The Ravens don't just miss the playoffs in consecutive years. The Patriots, when Tom Brady was there, they didn't really miss the playoffs like that. Eagles, they don't miss the playoffs on a consistent basis. There are teams throughout the NFL that are kind of just they can never really get their shit together, but they got a solid quarterback, and maybe we could string some things together in a year or two, and then everything else is we're picking in the top 10. So the Jags, man, they're kind of in a tough spot because they just paid their quarterback a shit ton of money, and he sucks. So, and there were people already out there. Richard Sherman is a guy who I give a lot of credit to. Hey, man, he's got Daniel Jones-like numbers, and we're paying him how much money? How much money is he getting paid? So he's a guy that I saw that was kind of early on it before he ended up getting a paycheck. And it's all right, you got a playoff win. What have you done for me lately? Let's slow down on how much money you're going to be making. But some of these organizations, they just get trapped, and they're just we don't want to be irrelevant. But it's you're going to have a high paid quarterback and still be irrelevant. So it's you gotta. Some organizations don't really know how to pivot, and they're just stuck, and then they suck forever. I feel like the Jags have kind of just sucked for the majority of my life.